What is Gucci, everyone? Welcome back. I have not made a video in a long time. If you're a frequent viewer, I'm trying to get back on the video grind, but I've been a little lazy. I just got a new job and I'm moving, and so I'm preparing for that. Thumbs up if you like getting jobs. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about Swift 2 and array methods and things you can do to make your life easier and apply lengthy operations otherwise easily to arrays. Let's look at the code now. If I wanted to apply an operation over a list very quickly, I can do one very simple thing. I can use the map function. The first thing I am going to do is I'm going to create a new list, list2, and that list is going to be made from the map method. So when I call the map method, it only takes one parameter, which is a closure, and when the last method is a closure, you don't need parentheses, you can just use the braces. Now, what map does is it goes over the list that you're applying it to, in this case, list, and applies the operation that you want to it. And so, in this case, the elements that map is going to be applying to are going to be called element, and then this closure is going to return an integer. And so I'm going to take that element, and for this map I'm going to multiply it by 10. And then right down here I'm going to print out list2 and explain what happened. So I'm calling map, and I'm setting up the closure right here in line 10, and I'm saying, okay, this closure has one parameter, element, and it returns an integer. And inside this closure, it's very important to have the in keyword. I'm going to take the element, times it by 10. Now, by default, if you did not know, a closure always returns the last line of the closure. So you can think of a return statement automatically being placed there for you. So you don't need that. Okay, so that's pretty easy, and as you can see here in the right hand side, the new array which is returned is 10, 20, 30, 40, and 220. Note that it returns a new array, but it does not change the first array, the original list. As I print that out here, and hopefully Playground updates, I still see that my original list is 1, 2, 3, 4. So map returns a new array but does not change the old one. I think that's pretty nifty. So you can use map for simply placing an operation if you quickly wanted to iterate over an array and apply just one operation to everything. A very quick operation, map would be what you could use instead of just a for loop. Or if you wanted to, for instance, had an array of classes and wanted to get the description of the description string in that array of classes, you could just map the element.description method and get a string array back, and then use that string array. So you can change types of the array if you want to. You just specify what you want returned. Okay, and just to note that you can also use short closure syntax, which instead of declaring the return type and the element, you let the compiler figure that out for you, and you simply use the default parameter, which will start at $0, and if there were two parameters, it'd be $0 and $1, etc., $2, and so on. So that's the shortest way to do a map. It's in one line. Pretty nice. Okay, so that's pretty easy. So now we're going to go over another very important method. So we learned map, which applies one operation to the whole array, to each element in the array. Now we're going to learn about reduce, which turns your array, which takes your array and scrunches it up into one element and only returns a single element, not an array. And so what reduce does, I'll show you guys, is it's a really good example of reduce is summing your array if it's all numbers. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take reduce, and it just takes a type t, whatever the type of the array is, and I'm going to give it an initial value, in this case 0, because we're going to be adding up all the numbers. And then it's going to take a closure. Instead, we're going to put the closure at the end, since it's the last parameter, and get rid of all that nonsense. Get rid of the parameter definition. And inside this parameter, what we're going to do here is we're going to use the quick syntax, and I'm going to do present $0, not %0, plus $1. And so now you can see list 2 is now 32 instead of an array. So what is happening here is something very clever. All the elements are getting scrunched up. So what happens on the first iteration is the initial value is passed in as $0, and then the first element is also put into $1, and the operation is used. So %0 plus %1, so 0 plus 1. Okay, and now 1 is the initial value. So now I'm going to take the initial value $0 and add the next element 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So then I get 3, and then I add 3 to it, so 6, and then I do 6 plus 4 is 10, and then I do 10 plus 22 is 32. And so that reduces the array to one element. Note, I could make the initial element anything I wanted. I could make it 10, and then my final answer would be 42, because it would start off with 10 plus 1, 11 plus 2, and so on. So your initial element is just whatever you want to start it off as. So that's pretty cool with the reduce method. So you could easily sum an array. Very simple, very simply. Okay, now before I get into the last method, I'll go over another quick method, and that's reverse. So reverse does what you think it does. It simply reverses elements in the array. And right now, it returns it in a different type. And so there's also other reverse methods that return it in a different kind of type. And so what you may want to do, let me see if it prints the elements out. So what it is now is a different type that simply acknowledges the base as 1, 2, 3, 4, 22. And if you call dot, let me see, elements dot, I think you can call, let's call index list 0 on it. See what happens. Cannot subscript a type, so it doesn't let you subscript. So this isn't exactly an array. It's just a type you can iterate through. So if I wanted to, this goes into the next section actually quite nicely. In this 2, I believe I could print elem. And let's see if I get some text here. Okay, so there we go. So right there, it's going to show us our last printed out value, which is 1. So basically, reverse returns an iterable collection for us to iterate over. It doesn't actually change the array. And so then we can print it out. So in this case, the last element printed out in our array was 1, which when the array is reversed, 1 is now the last element instead of the first element. Okay? So reverse is another easy function if you need to reverse the array. Okay. Now we're going to go into enumerate. So before in Swift 1, if you wanted to do enumerate, you needed to call the universal function enumerate and then pass in your list. Well, you don't do that in this one. You don't do that in Swift 2. Instead, you call list.enumerate. And so enumerate is now added to the array class. And now what you want to do in your for loop is you want to, just like in the first Swift, we don't need that anymore. You want to print out the index and print out the element. So if I have the index here, and then I have the element, then I can simply print out all the values. If I do this correctly, then index will be the first element, and then element will be the second element. So my last element here was 4, which is true in the array because it starts at 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in my array. And 22. So it printed out the index of 4 and the element of 22. So just remember, when you enumerate over anything, you're able to get the index of the element you're at while getting the element of you're at, whatever type the element may be. It could be any type because the array doesn't care. You can enumerate through any array. It's just the collection. a mutable collection that can change at any time. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it finally gets up because I've tried this recording 3 times. Have a great day.